Now? Okay. Okay, welcome to the State of the Town Address. We're excited to have it here. We got many things to talk about and present. And as a surprise to probably a couple of you at least, there's more things going on than just Topgolf. So we do have a lot of stuff that goes on in this town that we are going to be talking about and going through. So we're excited about it. Excited to tell you and stuff. Let me tell you one thing about tonight that's a little bit different than other communications that come out of the town. Tonight, this is a public meeting. What that means is we don't have ex parte restricting us as a council on what we say. So we can say things that are going on without the restriction of the legal requirement of ex parte. And we will be. There's been a number of questions that have been asked, and we have every intention of answering as many as we can. And we're going to ask you if you have questions for those that showed up here. And how are you going to do that, Kim?
There are cards and pieces of paper that you should have received on your way in. You can just write them down. We'll gather all of those during our break, and then we'll get to the Q&A session.
Okay. So that's the game plan and what we're doing. So let me start. Here's the people that you've elected to represent you in a Democratic, Republican type of government, and they spend a lot of time. There's a lot of time that they spend trying to make this town a better place, and we may not always agree, hopefully, policy-wise, but as far as what the intent is, I can assure you that they want Timnath to be the best place, and they wouldn't be spending the time that they do if they didn't want Timnath to be one of the nicest places to live. So, whoops, I skipped. So here's what we are. We got 9,200 people here now. 10 years ago it was 620. We've got registered voters of 6,530, and we've got 3,000 plus homes that are here, and it's increasing every day, really. Here, one of the things we're going to talk about first is our fiscal policy. Are we being good stewards of your money? We want to be good stewards. We're going to try to be good stewards. I'm excited about what we've done. We've got $21.7 million that we've got set aside, committed for capital projects, and that is extending trails, creating trails, improving the Timnath Park, improving Wild Wing Park, and we're going to get into the details of that as we go on today. We got $10.3 million surplus. That gives us a safety net in case something happens that we need that money. And then there's $4.2 million that's in reserves that we really can't touch, but they are there if we, for example, have a police emergency or something of that sort. One of the big things that we did, and I'm very, very proud of this, is when I became mayor and this council was elected, was we were told, you've got this $80 million debt load on the town when we first came and took it, and you've got an interest rate of 4.9%. That's tax exempt. So that, if you look at that as a taxable interest rate, back in the days when we were only at 2 or 3%, that would have meant that that's an effective rate of 6 or 7%. We worked hard to try to see if we could refinance that debt, and we were able to do that. So we are able with a mortgage broker to sit there and refinance this debt. They were we had an incredible broker to do it, and we knocked all the town debt from interest rates of 4.9 or 4.4 down to 3.9. As I said, we've now got the debt load down to 59 million from the 80 million that we were at the start 3.5 years ago. And that refinance ends up over the period of time to 2029 of saving the town $1.8 million. And really it only cost us $73,000 to the broker fee to do that. So we are real excited about how that worked and how that came about. All right, other things, property taxes. We have not had an increase in property taxes for 15 years. So I don't know about what you have, but I doubt any of you can say you're paying the same amount for bread, water, whatever, as you did 15 years ago. But you are in the town. Our mill levy is 6688, which means for a $500,000 home, you're paying $232 worth of property taxes. Now that's what goes to the town. You know, you're saying, wait a minute, my property taxes are $4,000 or $5,000 or whatever it is. Well, most of that's going to the school district. So it's most of the taxes that you pay goes to the school district. A very small number goes to the town. And in fact, if the only money that the town made was from property taxes, we wouldn't be able to have a police force. We would not be able to fix the potholes. We would not be able to snow remove, all of those things, because it costs us more than $1,000 a household to maintain city services. So we've got our taxes down about as much as I think you would possibly think that could happen. One of the other things that we initiated 3 years ago was a citizen finance committee, and that was so that citizens would come in. Sarah's here, she's on the committee, has done a great job for us. And Luke, you're still on it too, aren't you? So it's a group of people that have volunteered and been appointed to this finance committee. And what we do is we review the audit, we select the auditors, we review the financial report, we make sure that the reporting in the financials clear. The first year that the finance committee reviewed the audit, we made something like 40 changes to the wording in the audit to make it clearer for people reading it to understand what's going on with the town finances. We've expanded transparency in the budget and audit process. We have 2 or 3 hearings so that you can see what we're allocating money to. And so I think they're doing a great job for the town and for you. So that takes care of the financial side of it. Luke, who helps with a lot of the transportation issues, is going to take it from here and talk about transportation.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark.
There you go.
Perfect. So my name is Luke Wagner. I've been with Timnath Town Council for a little less than a year now. In my short time with Timnath Town Council, we spent a lot of time talking about transportation. I've learned a lot about what the town's doing to plan and mitigate the issues and plan for future issues. As you all know, Larimer and Weld counties were some of the fastest growing metro regions in the last decade. That creates a unique challenge for the town because a lot of our streets are used by our surrounding communities to get to and from work. The town, what we're currently doing is updating our master transportation study. The study will help manage new development and allocate capital. You can go out to the website and check it out. There will be an opportunity for you to provide input and learn more about that. Okay, so the Walmart parking lot, right? I think we talk about it every year. I remember the mayor talking about it last year. I really encourage you guys to go out and read the most recent Coloradoan article about this. It was a great article. It kind of used a lot of the problems I'd also encourage you to go back and review our last town council meeting where council member Axmacher talks about that as well. One of the biggest problems we have is it's private property. We say that again and again every year, and we're really dependent on Walmart to be good partners with us. The town has suggested several options for the Walmart parking lot, including a roundabout. So that'd be a roundabout right in this section as opposed to the turn. We've suggested moving the intersection farther north, so that kind of eliminates some of the hassle coming in and out of here. We've also talked about adding turn lanes to the current intersection. And finally, we wanted to add signage and stripes so people don't block the entrance to JJ's. We've talked a lot about how people coming off this way, when they're wanting to turn into, Murphy's, they kind of block this intersection. It backs all the way up due to that. So our latest talk with them is just adding simple stripes and do not block the intersection. So we're encouraged by what Walmart said in the Coloradoan. Sounds like they want to be good partners to us. A lot of conversations going on. The Weitzel Street extension. So that extension was completed. So originally the build out was 2 lanes. We've got it to 4 lanes. So the good news about Weitzel is that really up here at Harmony and Weitzel, we expect a lot of the traffic to be relieved up at this intersection due to people coming down south and going down to Kechter Road. So we are continually watching that and making sure it's doing what we expect. Prospect Road. So most of the Prospect Road improvements are completed. We did a 2/3 mile widening on Main Street. That's west of Main Street. There's a 3/4 mile widening on Main Street north of Prospect. Traffic lights were installed at that intersection. And East Prospect was straightened out at Dead Man's Curve. So most of that work has been completed. Improved light timing on Harmony. So as you know, that's a major intersection. There's a lot of cars that come through there. As we spoke about, a lot of communities are traveling through our community. So we're always working with CDOT on that. Anytime they make changes for the construction on I-25, that changes our light timing. So we've got a great group with the town, and they're always communicating with CDOT, and every time we're making improvements. So if something changes, we're going out and improving our lights. Expanded snow removal. So the town currently has 9 snow removal vehicles. 4 of those are the big plows. 5 of those are light duty vehicles. We did purchase a new snow plow. We're expecting that to be delivered in March, and that'll just help us continue to clear the streets. Street sweeper. So we've got 1 street sweeper, which is done twice a year. That's in the spring and late fall. There's also, on the website, there's also a place where you can check out the street sweeping schedule, and we really appreciate it if you check that out because it helps the street sweeper clear the streets if we don't have cars parked on the street. Awesome. Lisa? Lisa's up next.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Lisa Lake, and I have been a council member for 5 years now. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Parks and Recreation. And before I get started on that, I do want to give a shout out to all of our PROST members. So those are community members who volunteer their time to talk about all things related to parks, recreation, open spaces, and trails. So starting with our trail system, you can see there the picture of where the trail will ultimately continue and go through. There are a couple sections, and the questions we get asked most often are, when is it going to connect up to River Bluffs over in Windsor? And then another question is related to the part past Walmart and connect to Fort Collins. So I did want to let you know that the part that connects under I-25, or I should say will connect under I-25, will be completed as they do the road work on I-25. So the timing of that will coincide with the expansion. As far as the rest of it, towards like the River Bluffs area, we have been partnering with Larimer County, and I believe Windsor's in on it as well. And the county quite a couple years ago applied for a GOCO grant to get money to finish that. And so Larimer County is the lead on that project, and we are hoping that that connection will be completed either the end of 2023, so the end of this year, or early next year, to give a safe way to connect up to Windsor. Once the entire section is done, including under I-25, I think it's supposed to be something like almost 30 miles of trail from Fort Collins all the way to Greeley. A couple pictures of a couple parks, our community park as well as Weitzel Pond. The community park up top was completed prior to this last year, but I wanted to let everyone know that if you happen to visit it, there is now a backstop. So if any kids or adults want to play baseball or softball, there's no bases, but there is a way to collect the balls if past where home plate would typically be. Weitzel Pond, if you've never gone there, it's actually very, it's frequented by a lot of people. A lot of them are not residents, so if you ever do go down there, since it's right near that's the one that's right near the Walmart, you might see people ice fishing in the winter, people picnicking, and then there is the path that goes partway up towards I-25 on there as well.
You mentioned that we do have another section that's going in now in the community park that I know you're fully aware of.
Yep, that's a different slide.
Okay, great.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
So that's right here, which is phase 3, which will include, you can see pickleball courts, tennis courts, basketball court, as well as a splash pad. The splash pad is kind of more over towards the playground area. If you happen to drive by there right now, you will see that work has started. So there is a section where the tall grasses have been pulled out already. It's roped off, so you might see some work trucks. That should be completed at some point this year. I know for the splash pad, we do want that to be completed prior to a freeze setting in at the end of the year so that we can make sure that everything is working related to that splash pad. So you will see some work being done on that. Obviously, some of it takes time. The landscaping may not come in until the end of this season or even early next season, but the courts and things should be done by the end of the year. Another proposed concept right here is for the Wild Wing Park. And the Prost Committee actually has recently looked at multiple different options for what that park could look like. And those suggestions will be going to the Town Council sometime soon. But this is just a bubble diagram for what that looks like. Not always drawn to scale, but it gives you an idea of some of what might be included in that. You'll see that there would be additional parking. The existing parking at some point will be upgraded potentially to be paved. There's areas for community garden, for obviously restrooms will go in there. The area that you can see down on the bottom of the picture there, the south part, is to remain soccer fields or open grass, basically. So nice big grassy area. If you go to the community park right down the road here, you'll see that the big grassy spot is used quite often. And so stay tuned. They do typically, so our process is typically that council will approve kind of a general idea of what we want, and then sometimes there may be opportunities to provide feedback. We did open houses related to this, so hopefully we've already collected all of that feedback and have taken all of that into account with all of the design here. We don't know yet as far as what will go in first. So that is to be determined. It may end up being a 2 or 3 phase park, just like the community park was. But the grass part obviously is still there as well and will be. Timnath Reservoir. This one, you can see here, the water's kind of low at that time. The restroom building will be completed this year. Shade structures and signage will be added. In the past, we have also started to expand a trail that could potentially go around that. It has been expanded in the past. And then just to hit on, the town does not own the reservoir. So in case people come to us wanting us to do certain things with the water or things like that, the town leases some of the space around it. And so some of the updating that's done is by the town. You can see the wall, things like that we have done. But we can't always do everything we want to do based on the fact that we are not owners of that. With that, people have commented about what looks like a gravel kind of road by the houses in Wild Wing. That was put in there from the owners of the property. And I will turn it over to Robert to talk a little bit about public safety.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Good evening. Thank you all so much for being here. It's great to see everyone turn out and everyone tuning in. My name is Robert Oxmacher. I joined the council last year in April 2022 when Mayor Soukup was kind of asking who wants to speak on what topic. I raised my hand and said, can I please have public safety? In my first career, I spent 17 years in law enforcement at an agency that had about 46 commissioned officers, and I'm just really excited about all the great things that are going on here in Timnath with our police department and the great work of Chief Jones, who is here managing what really is not an easy task, which is growing a police department from literally fewer than 10 officers to a full-time, full-service 24/7 department, and he's doing a great job managing that process. Back in 2019, we did a community survey, and we really like these community surveys. You'll get them on all sorts of topics. Sometimes it's the general community, sometimes it's something specific like Wild Wing, but we really do look at those surveys, and they really do manage our direction going forward. In 2019, based on resident feedback, it was determined that there is a strong desire to have a 24/7 full-service police department in Timnath. And so over the past 4 years, we really have been working to make that happen. Chief Jones, and I agree with him here, essentially identified to go to 24-hour coverage, we need to have 20 officers employed by our town. That's what it takes to get 24/7 coverage. Currently and previously in the evenings, we contract with the Sheriff's Department to provide some coverage. So during the past year, our department really has been focusing on growing, hiring, and training additional officers. I will say that it's a difficult time right now to be hiring in public safety. It's a difficult job to do. It's a very competitive market. All of our surrounding agencies, are also trying to hiring. Everyone is down officers. And I really appreciate that we have not sacrificed quality in hiring our officers. It's important to have a quality department, not a department that is full of officers. And so in the next year, in 2023, it's anticipated that we will cross over that threshold and finally be able to convert to the 24/7 coverage. Just want to point out, this is newly promoted Sergeant Richards with our department. He'll be our second sergeant, and he was recently promoted. But as you can see, all of our officers really do a great job of getting out, engaging in our community with all of our events, including Shop with a Cop, the 4th of July, Fall Festival, Ice Cream Social, Bike to School Day, the Timnath Elementary Parade, Pop with the Cop, and the Safety Fair. If you haven't attended any of these events, I encourage you to check them out. It's really great, and the officers are always great about interacting with the kids and passing out badges and things like that. I'm not going to run you through the numbers here, but something that I really appreciate the police department has been doing over the past year is putting out monthly stats publicly on kind of what they've been up to, describing what types of calls they've been responding to, how many arrests they've made, how many total calls for services. And what you can see here is that in the last year, over 12,000 calls for service that they responded to. And that can be anything from, assisting on a medical call, it could be extra patrol, it could be a traffic stop, or it could be looking into one of these criminal episodes. And of course, the most exciting thing is we have finally opened our new police facility. That facility was essentially built groundbreaking to our grand opening in 1 year. It's an amazing facility. It's great to see everybody come out for the grand opening. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, I suspect that if you contacted the police department, they'd probably be willing to do a little show and tell with you, and I highly recommend that you do that. This police department was built without incurring any debt, which is really exciting and absolutely unheard of. So with that, I will turn it over to Brett.
Thanks. Good evening. Thank you all for coming out, and to anybody that watches this in the future, good evening. My name is Brett Hansen. I've been on the council for about 3 years. It's been a very enjoyable experience, and I've loved getting to know the community better and serving it. Some of the topics I'm going to talk about are related to community development. And when I say community development, I generally am referring to our codes, our building codes, our land use codes, and some of the updates that we continuously make to that code to reflect impact from the input from the community, as well as direction from the state legislature. An example of some of the updates to our code that we've made recently with relation to the state legislature have to do with both wind turbines and childcare home facilities. We don't put those together, but they are different topics. Wind turbines, the state wanted to make them easier for people to have at their homes. We've also heard from people in the community that wanted to make sure that they were protected from any impacts related to noise or potential safety hazards. So we made sure to try and find a balance with implementing state law, but protecting residents from those neighboring impacts. There was also a desire to make childcare home facilities easier to open, less regulatory hurdles. And there's certainly a need in Timnath for more childcare. I know I see it all the time. So some of the changes we've made to our land use code will make it easier for anybody that wants to open up an in-home daycare and home preschool, things of that nature. An example of another land use code update we made was related to gas stations. We've received land use applications to put gas stations around Timnath, particularly along Harmony Corridor. We didn't want to see a situation where Harmony Corridor just became one long gas station. So we've made sure to put in rules that space those out so that we aren't going to only see that type of business along the road there. We've also added new rules for buffering between land uses, and what that means is often in town we're seeing transitions from a higher intensity use to a lower intensity use, residential to commercial, things of that nature. And we wanted to create a better flow, greater landscaping buffering between these different uses to just have a better feel in the community with how that went. And community development is more than just the land use code. It's also building a community in other ways. And we're very excited to have a very full slate of community events this last year. And we had a broad variety of things. We had large community gatherings in parks to watch movies, watch fireworks, have parties of various kinds. We also had civic outreach events, council chats, the Citizens Academy. This year we got to introduce the story time with the Poudre River district, the Poudre River Library District. They come into the town center and they do a story time with the little kids. That's been something that's becoming more and more popular. We also do events with the elementary schools. And these events we really consider a good investment. It's a pretty small percentage of our total expenditures with the town, but they receive immensely positive feedback, every one we do. And when we've done town surveys, Robert mentioned that we do surveys. Town events was rated highly as something that people would like to continue to see. So we follow that input and we continue to offer these events, and we've got a full slate intended for next year as well. But you don't have to just take my word for it. We've even got show and tell.
Baby, I'm thriving. living my best life. Yeah, living my best life. I've been living my best life. Living my best life.
One last word on community building events. I wanted to give a special mention to the Citizens Academy. This is the second year that we've done this program. It's essentially a crash course for people that are interested in learning more about the inner workings of the town, what the town's role is and how our growth is determined and how we set budgets and how we build parks. And all the residents of the community that have participated have given us good feedback, good reviews, and I hope we continue to see people stepping up and wanting to learn more. It's our hope that programs like this and the town committees will see more and more residents become engaged with the town, perhaps have interest in serving in other committees, serving on the Planning Commission, running for town council. We would love to facilitate and empower more and more people to be involved with the community. Next, I'll move on to the topic of communications and transparency. These are topics that are very important to us. We expend actually a great deal of resources, both in time and money, to communicate to the town and keep everybody informed. And the reason we do that is because we consider ourselves partners with the town. It's our community. We live here with the rest of you, and we thrive on the input that we're getting from the community. The questions, the concerns, the direction, letting us know what's happening in your street. It all gives us good direction with the way we want to serve the community and try to serve you. So first we have the website. We have a new website that launched this last year, and this website is amazing. It has so much information related to everything we do. It is so comprehensive with the information that is on it that in my role as a council member, this is my primary source when I'm researching information for town council meetings or the codes or developments under review. I start at the website. I don't go to my email inbox and try to look through emails from staff. I just go to the website. If you want to know what's going on in the town, it's there. We also want to make sure that this information is accessible to those that don't want to just spend hours perhaps digging through town documents. We want to make the information accessible and digestible to everybody. So in that spirit, we have a number of different approaches that we try to take. For example, our council and planning commission meetings, those are streamed on YouTube, and they're still always available on YouTube. You can watch us at double speed, and we sound very excited when we talk at double speed. So that's something you can do. We also put out informational videos on topics that we hear questions from the community on. You know, do you want to learn more about code enforcement? Or we're going to do more about how development works in Timnath. We've had videos on snowplow removal. We have a whole section of instructional videos on metro districts if you're interested in learning more about how your metro district works and wanting to be involved there. And I especially want to put a plug for the email updates that the town works on. These are something we've worked very hard to include a lot of information on, but have it also be very quick reads. If you want to know what's happening in the town, this is the best way to do it. Go to the website and subscribe to receive updates. You will know what development applications are coming to a public hearing. Again, some of the dates that where I'm going to see development applications, I hear about it in the emails first before I officially know anything else. That's where you want to go if you want to find out what's going on in the town. So, as I said, we spend a lot of time and resources to facilitate this partnership with the town, either through surveys, through the emails, because we listen and we want to listen to the input of the entire community, and we'll listen to the different opinions that sometimes have across the community. So that when we make decisions and when we take on projects or initiatives, what we're doing reflects the input that we are receiving from the entire community in a balanced way to try to address all the concerns that people are expressing to us. Finally, last thing that I have here is related to ballot questions that we had over this last year. The community got a chance to weigh in and vote on how our elections will progress in the future. Timnath voters have voted to approve a ballot initiative where we will create districts in the town when we reach 15,000 voters. The rate we're going, that's not too far away. It'll come sooner than we know. And then we also asked the community to approve a change moving Timnath elections from April to November of even years. And we're really grateful the community supported us on this move. First off, I think it'll improve turnout at our council elections. And second, Timnath's hitting a point where every time we run a town election, it's getting pricey. Just a few years ago, it was $1,000 to run a town election. Now every time we run a town election, it's tens of thousands of dollars, every single time. By going to November, now we're able to partner with the county, and they share a lot of those costs. And so we're excited to make that change. And over the next couple elections, you'll actually still see some April elections. We decided to make the transition take a little longer, just so everybody is aware. We'd had the option, technically legal, to extend our terms 6 months, but we felt like the best route would simply be the next elections would be for 4.5-year terms. So it'll take a couple election cycles, but then we'll be moving to November from there. So we've got a lot of great things happening in the town, a lot of ways where I think we're partnering with the community and looking to build the spirit of what Timnath is. And that's what I have, and I'll turn it back to the mayor.
Thanks. So that sort of summarizes up where we've done for 2022. For a little town, 9,000 people, we have more stuff going on than most of the large towns. I mean, it's very comparable to Greeley and Windsor and Fort Collins. And it's amazing how much stuff, how much activity is going on in this little town. So the next thing I want to do is talk about where are we going, okay? So for 2023, what do we see us as a council moving forward to? And we've got a vision that Timnath's a welcoming, connected, and thriving community, and we want to continue with that concept. We buy all three of those adjectives. Our core values are integrity, collaborative, professional, and innovative, even when it's hard to do those. Sometimes it's hard to sit there and deal on a collaborative basis, but we work real hard that we can do it. I think, I'll digress here a second, I think a lot of times people have criticized the council because of not being collaborative. Well, the law prevents us in a lot of situations from being collaborative until it hits a public forum. So and if you think about it, let me just explain it for a second. It's called ex parte. And if a developer comes to the town and says, I'm going to build a swing set, and it's going to be the biggest swing set in the world, and they want to build this swing set, well, the town doesn't want us to be individually going, the 4 of us, 5 of us, talking to that developer on what's going on. The town should be involved from day one. So we can't do that. The town, we can't tell the town what will happen with that developer because we haven't decided. We don't know. All we know is they've made an application to either annex into the town or change the land use. And so we can't say anything. Once it comes to first reading, all bets are off, because that's the first time that proposal, that project, hits public forum. Tonight we'll be able to talk about some of those issues because this is a public forum. The developers had every right to show up here. Townspeople had every right to show up here. And so we're going to be able to talk about some things that, quite frankly, after 6:15 tonight, or yeah, 7:15 tonight, 7:15 tonight, we can't talk about again until it becomes a public notice in our process. And towns have processes, drives me crazy, quite frankly. I'm a businessman. I like to sort of get to it, get everybody together, let's talk about this and get it done. Towns don't, municipalities don't let that happen. There's laws that prevent me from going to a townsperson and saying, what do you really want to do? Let me see what I can sit there and do until we get to the public area. And it prevents me from getting beside a developer and say, how much money are you going to give us back if you sit there and develop this land? Can't do that either. So it prevents us from sitting there and having deals or side deals or any other kind of deals with developers or the citizens. And that's, to me, quite frankly, it's very frustrating. You know, I'm a businessman and I'm used to sitting down with my clients and who we're buying the property from and talking through it, and that's not how municipal government works. So hopefully that maybe explains some of the frustration I know that some people have on what's going on with Topgolf. So here's our goals. The first one is to have exceptional park facilities and recreation planning. I mean, we're going to finish out Community Park. I mean, if you haven't ever been there, it's a beautiful park and it's something to be really proud of here. We are then going to go to the other side of town, to Wild Wing, and develop up another community park there, which will be about 35 acres. And it's going to have a lot of different things. They asked the community what they want, you know, the Wild Wing group, what do you want? There are other people that showed up, but mainly the people who were Wild Wing, and they said, here's what we want. We want tennis courts. We want pickleball. We want, looking at my friend who deals pickleball, we want those kinds of things, and that's what we try to incorporate into that plan. And so that's our goal, is to try to develop up good parks. We still got trails we got to connect out. You know, one of the issues that we have is Fort Collins hasn't completed the rest of their trail, the Poudre River Trail. Soon as they get theirs done, we can finish the little bit that we've got. We've done a big chunk of ours, and we still have just a little bit, right, Don? We've got a little bit to do, and pretty soon you're going to be able to go from the foothills all the way down to Greeley. And we're real excited about that, and we're encouraging and pushing for that to happen. One of the things we have to do is take care of business, you know, make sure our infrastructure is right, fix the potholes, make sure that the streets are plowed, identify problem traffic areas, and you know, we're going to have traffic. You know, I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to ask you a question. Think about it in your mind, and then I'll tell you the answer. How many people do you think drive Harmony that are Timnath residents, percentage-wise? Percentage-wise. Okay. 30%. Very few people that drive down Harmony are Timnath residents. They are Severance, they're Windsor, and so they've created, you know, people say, Guy, why didn't you plan for that? Well, who knew Severance was going to sit there and make it so that all of their people's main access out of Severance was down Harmony? Now, hopefully, Prospect's going to help out, Kechter will help out. They have made 392 better. So as long as these things keep spreading out, it'll help. Actually, it's going to help. Our traffic problem, actually, even though we'll be growing as a town, we'll probably be reducing the amount of traffic that we're going to have. Another thing we're evaluating is having non-potable water systems. Luke has been, where are you, Luke? There. Luke has been a real force behind, let's try to water all our parks with non-potable water and in a preservation standpoint, and we're going to work on that hard. And try to do that with all of our parks and open space. And then the last thing we're going to take a look at is, does it make sense to have our own local internet like Loveland and Fort Collins? Is it too expensive? Are we going to run into problems with it? Is that something we want a municipality to handle, or do we feel comfortable with the private industry to do? And that's going to be one of our issues this year. And the other one is cellular service. You know, do we sit there and put 5G on our and we probably won't. don't knock your head off by going sideways. But we've got do we do 5G or not? You know, and we have to ask these questions because people get asked, and make sure that everybody gets heard and then make decisions on it. Community safety, we spent a lot of time this year on community safety. We built a new police station out of cash. We did not borrow money. We used cash proceeds that we had to sit there and develop up a very utilitarian but very nice police building. And you know, I always wing these things, Chief. So Chief, do you want to spend about a minute or two telling people how that building's going for you and what happens there?
Well, thanks, Mayor. It's superb. A new facility. It's going to be grown into, and I anticipate probably a 20, 25-year or 30-year outlook. And essentially, we just have to build the agency right now, and then we'll add the components, the detectives, the sergeants, the lieutenants, and the command staff. But it's superb. And the calls for service, I think, Mayor, I think the last survey, it was 96% approval rating for our agency. So it's a high bar, but we intend on maintaining that level of service.
Thanks. I'll tell you what, I had two fun experiences last year as mayor. One was I did a ride-along with our new sergeant, and it just astounded me. He was going down Timnath Ranch, and kids on the bikes would stop and say, "Hi, Sergeant," "Hi, Officer," and they'd, the people, there was 3 couples that were walking along, and they stopped and sat there and talked to him for a little while. I mean, the outreach that they're able to do so that if something happens, they're going to feel safe about getting hold of that police officer and telling him what the issues are. And they do an incredible job. Plus, if you ever saw all of the equipment they have to carry to be safe, it's it'd make you think twice about whether you want to be an officer or not. Police department just does a great, and that's just a continuation. The police department does a great job of outreaching. You know, we do our Shop a Cop. We do every single festival we have, 4th of July, Fall Festival, Spring Cleanup. There's a group of police officers there, usually giving little giveaways to the people to the kids and making it fun for them. So thanks, Chief. We strive on being responsible and making the rules of governance fair and democratic. We take great pride in our fiscal responsibility. The first year alone when I became mayor, we reduced contract labor by $1.8 million, okay? I mean, we got rid of legal expenses, some engineering expenses, some accounting expenses that we got rid of, marketing expenses that we got rid of that made it so that we could use those monies for other things that makes it a better town. We really do work hard at trying to disseminate information. We've got our newsletter, and I think Brett did a good job of identifying all the things that we have and stuff. And as he said, on the website, you can go through and identify almost anything that you have a question on. And in fact, even on Topgolf, once something has gotten past ex parte, it gets on that website. And there's a lot of information on that website on Topgolf that a lot of people say, well, you're not disseminating information. It's on there. You know, take a look and see. And then we try to do a good job on creating community events. Our 4th of July celebration, I think, is second bar none. It's people have fun, they have a good time, and it's. I'll tell you what. One of the highlights of being mayor last year was standing up on the bandstand and turning the mic over to the band and they played America the Beautiful, and to see everybody there stand up with their hands on their heart, singing along with it. I mean, it literally, even now, it sits there and chokes me up. It brought tears to my heart. It was just, I thought, how lucky am I to live in a town that will do that and be proud that they're an American. So we're lucky. We work hard on being responsible for community growth. You know, you got property rights, and those run afoul to sometimes what people want on their community next door. And a person that owns a piece of property has a right to build it within certain conditions. You don't have a right to tell your next door neighbor he can't build 2 stories on his house because it's going to block your view of the tree that's down the street. Can't do that. That's his property. And so when you extrapolate that out to other issues, that's one of the issues that we come into play with, is how do you sit there and make sure that we don't run afoul of property rights, because they can sue us. I mean, if we take away someone's property rights, they can sue the town saying we did and get a recovery for what the cost of that property right that they felt we took from them. So that's one of the things that we have that we're always interplaying. Is a fine line that we sit there and have to walk. All right, so here's the plan. We're going to, you all were given paper. Go ahead and write, and in about 2 minutes I'll have somebody start walking through to pick it up. We're going to take a 10-minute break so that we can get organized. So we're going to try our best to answer all the questions. We know that we probably aren't going to get them all answered. And we're combined a bunch. Like, we already had some come in on Topgolf, and there's like 4 of them that basically said the same thing, so we combined them up and we'll talk about them as a group. And hopefully you got other questions in Topgolf. But whatever you have, we'll try to answer them. We'll take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to go for 15 minutes hard and try to answer as much as we can. Okay? So go ahead and stand up, stretch your legs, go, and we'll be back in 10 minutes.
So with that, I think we got to start with Topgolf team. There's a lot of questions that we've had come in, and I think many of them might just be answered by a quick explanation of where we are in the process. So Mayor, maybe you could kick us off with that.
Okay. So, I'm going to start back 15 months ago. And 15 months ago, Topgolf came to the town of Timnath and said, we want to put in a Topgolf facility. We're going to either put it in Johnstown or Loveland, or our first preference is Timnath. Would you be interested in doing that? Now, I'm a firm believer you don't cut off alternatives. And I believe that the rest of this council believed that, and as did staff. So we came back and said, we'd be interested in talking to you. It was a 1-page letter. It said, we might do these incentives that you've suggested, but it was a total non-binding, non-set letter. After I sent that letter in December of 2021, I have not talked to either the developer or the Topgolf, because at that point, well, ex parte doesn't kick in until they actually make an application in the town. For just to be on the side of angels, I decided not to sit there and discuss, and none of the council people here discussed either. Then, Don, could you help me? Then Ladera came in and made an application, and maybe you can explain that, just 2 or 3 minute deal.
Okay, they made an application for their development, okay? And in their development, they They had obviously the floor and decor to start phase one, and they annexed just the phase one and left a noticeable amount of the rest of the property unannexed. They're now in the process of annexing that. With that came the opportunity for the potential Topgolf, and that's when that discussion started.
So as far as the city is here, we aren't dealing with Topgolf at all. We're dealing with Ladera, who is the developer of that piece of property. And they will probably go through an annexation review, which is their right, which won't be attached at all with Topgolf. Then once they get their property annexed, then the plans for Topgolf, the developer of Topgolf, will then come in, and they'll probably be buying the property from that developer. They'll be doing something, but that developer is going to sell for sure the property to Topgolf if in fact they decide to do that. That sale will be contingent upon it being approved by the town. In order to get approved by the town, it has to first go through, and I always forget it, it's P's with the...
They're going to have in this particular case, it's going to be a PUD or
Okay. So it'll go through and have a PUD, then it'll go to our colleagues at Planning and Zoning will review it and take a look at it, and then it'll come to the council for public debate and public discussion. One of the things that I saw, and if you want to see all the information on this, please go to our website, and it's under, help me, it's projects under development? Review.
Yeah.
Projects under review. If you go to our website and pull up projects under review, you'll see all of the stuff that Ladera has come up with. In there, I want to correct on a confusion. In there is a list of requests that developer wants, and it's 127 of them. Well, anybody who's been in business knows you shoot for the moon and hope you get the ground, and that's what they're doing. You know, there's no way in heck I can tell you that all 127 of those requests or incentives will be accepted, and my guess is, and it's only my guess, that it'll be a significant amount less than that. I think that takes it pretty much to where we are today.
Absolutely. So I'm going to pop in and out of both Ladera and then Topgolf specifically, because although they're not the same thing, they are obviously closely tied. So when we're looking at the Ladera developer plans, which could potentially include Topgolf, but other things too, how do we consider additional traffic or any other impacts that might be a result of that bigger Ladera development? And is there any opportunity for the public to weigh in on that?
Okay, so I'm doing my starting of handoff, so I'm handing it off to Brett.
Yeah, and that's a great question, and certainly worthy of note. People have concerns about the Harmony I-25 intersection. We all know that. In our comprehensive plan, that land where Ladera is designated as regional commercial. Regional commercial means essentially big commercial with big businesses. And it's been designated as that for longer than 10 years. So whatever goes there, be it Topgolf or something else, will be something that is intended to be a regional draw. This is explicit in our comprehensive plan all throughout it. So how do we deal with traffic? Well, first, it's important to note that there's a difference between bad traffic design and busy traffic design. We all know where bad traffic design is. You go on the north side of Harmony, you see Walmart, that is a bad traffic design. You go to Costco, that parking lot has more cars, way more. And it's not nearly the same experience going through that parking lot. It's busy, but it's much better designed. And that's the case because the town, I think, has learned a lot of lessons from their experience with Walmart. And as Ladera develops, we will continue to require more and more infrastructure improvements around that property. For example, Whitesell extending through the property is an example of one of those requirements the town has put on that developer, giving southern access to Costco, and I think that has actually been significant. I know I see a significant number of cars using that. Instead of having to get on Harmony and then loop around to the south on County Road 5, they're able to take Whitesell south. So we do put a lot of requirements on developers to pony up some money to help with our traffic issues when they bring in these developments. And as the mayor mentioned during the main presentation, these road networks will all connect up. And even though we get more and more cars, we actually will get better traffic situations as we allow the road networks to connect and give people more options of where to drive.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Jill.
I'm going to stay on Topgolf for just a little bit longer, and then I want to make sure we hit other topics too. So we had a couple questions about either results from environmental studies or traffic studies specific to Topgolf, and then also some questions around why haven't we responded to some of the feedback that we've gotten from outside entities, Audubon Society, others that are concerned with the wildlife. So why aren't we necessarily having those conversations or making those responses?
I'm going to answer the last part of
Okay.
that, and then who'd like to answer the first part? Okay, Luke. So we got emails, and we did get a report from the Audubon Society saying that it could be a danger to eagles and blue herons and that. Remember again, ex parte, we cannot respond to that. We're just not allowed to respond to it. Now so what happens is you got to let the process take its place, and the process says, okay, first you go through the PUD, then you go through P&Z, then you go through the town, and all of those places get community input. So there's lots of community input that comes in, but to talk about it now when it's there's probably more likelihood that Topgolf won't come in than they will, but to do it is so premature that it's causing more misinformation than information. And then you did, Luke, go ahead.
Thank you, Mark. I think that was great. The only thing I'd like to add to that is, any review of development application takes environment impacts into consideration. So I think that that's really important to know that when to Mark's point, why we're not responding to it is that ex parte communication. But as we go through the process, like Mark mentioned, we will take those into consideration.
Okay. One last Topgolf question, then we'll move on. So I think some in the community are under the understanding that this council will not allow the issue to be placed on the ballot for citizens of Timnath to vote. Can someone just address whether or not that is true and how you want to respond to that?
Robert, I'm handing it off to you.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. First of all, there is a citizen group out there collecting petitions right now, signatures for a petition. If they get the requisite number of confirmed signatures, it will be on the ballot. There is nothing that the town would do to stop it, could do to stop it, and wants to do. Yeah, we really are interested in what does the town as a whole think about this particular petition measure. The initial measure that was suggested, the town did have some concerns with. Those concerns had nothing to do with this potential development. Those concerns dealt with the long-term impact of if we changed our code in that way, how would it impact our ability to attract other desirable developments, and also what legal exposure would it subject the town to. The revised one that's being circulated is much more issue specific, and a lot of those concerns that we have are not present with the current one. If there were to be a ballot measure that says yes or no, this town wants business X or does not want it, that sort of ballot measure would subject us to legal problems. What we can do is we can pass regulations and laws that talk about development generally, but it needs to be business specific. And if it were business specific like that, that would be a problem. And so, that's why something like that wouldn't be on the ballot measure. But the current petition that's out there being circulated, assuming those signatures come through, absolutely, we look forward to putting it to the citizenry, just as we did with other issues like when to redistrict and when to hold our elections.
Great. I'm going to take a hard left turn now.
All
So let's just circle back. There was still some clarifying questions around Timnath Reservoir and the actual trail around the lake. So what is the plan for that? And then the second part of that question is there's some like riprap still there for access points. So what is our role in taking care of that and cleaning it up and making sure folks have access?
Lisa?
Okay. So as far as the walking trail around the reservoir, the approved master plan for the reservoir does depict a loop that goes completely around. We are working to, there'll be an opportunity for public input related to that. And then we do have certain phases in our 5-year capital improvement plan. So as I mentioned earlier, it has extended a little bit further on the west side. There are certain issues on the east side as far as where a potential trail could go. If you've been over there, the water kind of goes up to the road. So there would be some things that we would have to look at into doing that. But I know that council has supported a lot of the improvements up to date that have gone on at the reservoir, and we've all talked about wanting to see that loop around if possible. As far as the second question related to the riprap, which I kind of like that word, sorry, but so that's the part I mentioned earlier that looks like there's a road that goes, on the north side, that was put in by the Cash Laputa Irrigation Company that owns that. They were doing that in order to stabilize the land over there. We have heard some concerns from community members who are wanting to get whether it's paddle boards, kayaks, kind of a way to get through to the water. And right now, town staff are having discussions with the company to find some access points to be able to have community members go through that area. And basically, that is a part that the town is looking at as a location to potentially put a trail and kind of work with the work that's been done with the irrigation company in order to kind of make that go around. So hopefully the access points will be this spring in time for the summer, but we're working on that part right now.
Lisa, my recollection also is that the council budgeted $1 million for improvements of the Reservoir Trail.
I know we have a good chunk this year, and then it's also in the capital improvement plan for a couple years out as well.
Okay.
Great. I want to touch on some topics that we haven't talked about yet. This person is asking about a specific area for speed limit compliance, but maybe I'll just generalize this more so, which is if you wanted to improve speed limit compliance in your neighborhood, on your road, how do you go about doing that, and how can you make that request?
Robert?
Oh, well, I wasn't prepared for this one, but
Live and in person.
yeah, go.
I can take it if you want, I'm sorry.
Sure, no, go ahead.
Chief, do you want to get up here?
That was smooth, Mayor. I like that.
You just think I could only hand off to 3 other people. I can hand off to everybody. You weren't thinking on your feet fast enough.
Councilman? It's model traffic code. They designate the speeds, and they're roughly, it's traffic engineering, by the way, but the 85th percentile that travels down a road, generally, that's a marked speed limit. But if you have an additional, complaint or an issue, we will patrol the life out of it, and we'll also set up speed trailers to alert the motorist as to what their speed is. So we routinely have these complaints. Invariably, they're community members that are violating the law.
I'm going to add on to it, Chief. So I've had, you can correct me, Chief, but I think probably 4 citizens that said that on their street there was excessive speeding going on and stuff. On one case, he put up one of those monitors that says how fast you're going and stuff, and that seemed to slow down that. In another case, or 2 cases, he put police officers on there for about 2 months, and after they see their neighbor get a ticket, it suddenly cuts back on the amount of speeding that goes on. And then another one was Biden's Gate, where he had somebody patrolling back and forth for a while, and that helped. So he is very involved and active. He'll take your concerns in hand and do something about it.
Non-emergency police line, submit through the website. How would one actually do that?
Just the website.
Website.
Yeah.
There's a contact the police link on the website.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, Kim, we're at 7:25. Here's what I think. Let's do 5 questions.
Rapid fire. Okay, I think let's do, again, topics we haven't done yet before. I think this is an important one. We had someone write in and want to better understand the relationship with TST, and even thinking that there might be some conflict of interest given what they do for the town and their business model in general. So, integrity was one of our values. I think it'd be an important question to answer.
Don, I'll
Wow,
pass.
who knew this microphone
I'm
would get
really
so
good.
much work?
I can lateral, I can
Okay.
pass.
I got it. It was a handoff. Okay, my name is Don Toronto, and when we first started
Why don't you give what you are here?
Okay, I'm the Public Works Director, Contracted Public Works Director and Town Engineer for Timnath. And we've been here for the last 9-10 years. When we first started working here, we adopted a policy of not doing any work for private sector clients within the town of Timnath. And the purpose of that was to eliminate the potential of conflict of interest for any of our work within the town. And so we understood it. We understood it from day one, and that's why we adopted the policy. And it's still in place. We only work for Timnath, the town of Timnath, in Timnath, and we work for no other individuals.
I'm going to add something just because I know it, Don, if that's okay. Don and his company gave up a significant amount of fee income to take full-time engineering when the town couldn't afford a full-time engineer. I mean, he was doing it part-time for us and part-time for other people unconnected to the town. But he represented 3 developers at the time, and all 3 he discontinued their work, and they were significant dollar revenue producers for his firm. So he took incredibly the high road on ethics and making sure that he did not have a conflict of interest.
Great.
Point.
Go ahead.
Which is that, when Timnath was smaller, it really made sense for us to contract with someone for these services. As we grow, it makes more and more sense for us to have these internally. And over the past several years, we have moved a number of positions from contracted to internal, including just within the last couple of months, hiring a town engineer that is a town employee. So this trend, as we grow, will continue, and our reliance on contractors like TST will never go away, but will continue to shrink.
Okay, rapid fire. When will Timnath get a grocery store?
I got it. Hopefully soon. Here's the problem. We can't conjure a grocery store out of thin air. Ultimately, we need someone to come to us and say it makes business sense for us to locate a grocery store in Timnath. A lot of what they look at is what is the population of the town, and would the town support a big King Soopers or a big Safeway. They look at, if we put a grocery store here, does that increase their profit, or does it just cannibalize from the King Soopers or Safeway that's down the street? That's the challenge that we're facing. That said, we would love to see a grocery store. If somebody comes to us with proposals, we want to welcome them with open arms and talk about ways to make this beneficial for them and the town. So hopefully as our population continues to increase, this will become a reality, but we can't just make it happen.
Sure. Thanks. This is a topic we haven't talked about yet. So where does the town of Timnath stand on sustainability? Air quality and the conditions of our rivers are very important to residents. Are we looking at any sort of incentive for water conservation or even federal grants to install electric charging stations?
Great question, and I'm going to hand it off to Luke, who has been a big proponent of non-potable water and how we can get those on our open spaces, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mark. I think it's first to note that the town of Timnath isn't a utility provider. So that's through Fort Collins Loveland Water, right? We've got Northern Weld Water. So any kind of incentives from that perspective will have to come from those utility providers. I think we all would like to look into like zero-scape allowances for homeowners and businesses. So I think that'd be something that I would personally support. As far as looking at maybe electric charging stations, was that right, Kim?
Yep.
So I learned this as a new council member, but when we just did the car wash site plan, those are all included in those site plans. So I didn't realize that, and I'm really supportive of that idea throughout the community.
In fact, I think it's a requirement that there be charging stations in all commercial from now on. So we've already taken a big step there to hopefully be environmentally conscious.
Great. One more question?
And I've got one question. So you do yours, and I'm
Okay.
going to ask somebody here for it.
Okay, wonderful. So let's talk about a rec center and the potential of one being built here in Timnath.
Pardon?
I can take that one.
Okay, take it.
Rec center. So first off, I guess, Chief, how do you feel about a water slide around the police station? Does that work for you? That'd be our fastest way. So rec center is currently not in our 5-year plan. And the reason for that is based on the community input that we've received in our most recent town survey. In that survey, half the town said they wanted it, half the town said they didn't. Nobody wanted to pay for it. No one wanted to raise taxes, no one wanted debt, no one wanted to use any of those mechanisms. They wanted to use just saving up town funds, and a rec center will cost in the neighborhood about $30 million. And that's today. Assuming we want to do one in 5-10 years, who knows where it'll be at that point. So it just simply was a very expensive amenity that we continue to at least try to keep that option open, but it won't be in our, it's currently not in our 5-year plan.
The accounting just begs on this one because I don't think a lot of times people understand or appreciate the economics of it. If we went and spent our $30 million on the rec center, that's going to result in increased taxes of about $60 a month for everybody that has a house $600,000 plus, and obviously more if you have more than $600,000. So you're going to be paying $60 a month. That's whether you use that rec center or don't use that rec center, and whether you like your health club or don't like your health club, you're forced into the rec center health club to sit there and go forward with it. So when we think about the rec center, and I think the town's done a great job of evaluating that they don't want it because of the fact of realizing the economics of that. All right, I got one last question because it's sort of good news. Is just yesterday, Don Toronto had a discussion with Walmart on their parking and ingress egress situation. And Don, would you relay to all of us what happened?
It's going to be very quick. We've been talking to Walmart, as you know, for over 4 years, and regarding the issues out there, because we've understood them for a long time, and we've had a very difficult time getting any. We've had very difficult time getting any response, any positive response from them. I think due to some publicization of what's gone on in the paper and a few other things, they've changed their tune. We had a meeting with them just recently where they've now changed their particular tune. They've become very receptive to changes, and we're meeting again next week. And I'm very optimistic about them coming to the table with some options that could work.
Great.
Hot off the presses.
All right, so before we end, I'd like to thank, this thing, we all put in a lot of work and effort to make sure that we can give you the best information that we possibly can. I'd like to thank our technical crew who's back behind here doing, and in front of us, doing that camera work and that. I'd like to thank Angela, who sat there and helped get the PowerPoint and stuff. I'd like Kim, who helped guide us as to what's going on. And I'd like to thank Courtney and Callie for handling out all the logistics and stuff. And they're a great group. I'll tell you what, I work with, I used to give talks all over the country and always had a backup crew of all the technical and all of the microphones and stuff that went on. And they're the best, bar none. So thank you guys for doing all your work and stuff. And lastly, I'd like to thank my council. I mean, we may not always agree on stuff, but we understand consensus and we understand how to talk to each other. And so I appreciate, for the last 3 years, working with all four of you guys and lady. So with that, we appreciate it. If you, we will have council chat on
May 4th,
May 4th.
this location, 6 p.m.
And actually, the last thing I want to make sure of is that if you look in Timnath.org and go under Development Under Review, everything, there's lots of stuff on Topgolf, there's stuff on about any development going on, and you can find out what's going on at that point. And in fact, I can assure you, we don't find out anything more than what's on that Development Under Review, we being the council. Okay, hey, thank you everybody for coming. I mean, we're so lucky to have people that are interested in the town and want to be involved, so thank you so much.
Yeah, pop it up. No, it should be okay. You know, if you want those for just in case. Yeah.